Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Dave Vishen, Business Development Rep here at EquipSoft. In today's webinar, we're going to be discussing what's new regarding finance in Microsoft Dynamics Nav 2013 R2. Compared to previous versions, Microsoft has introduced many new features that are specific to finance to help enhance this area of the software. These features make reporting and analysis of information much easier as well as faster. The goal is to introduce you to some of those concepts during today's overview demonstration. Now I'd like to introduce our Customer Account Manager and today's presenter, Oliver Lamaka. Oliver has been with us for nearly 15 years and is also a former accountant, and he's one of the original architects of EquipSoft. So with that, over to you, Oliver.
Thank you very much, Dave. Let's just move ahead directly to our agenda for this morning. What's new in finance in 2013 R2. What I will be doing is going over some of these features to you in regards to the new reporting features, fact boxes, statistics, information sharing workflow. Basically, in summary, as you read through the rest of the topics, what we're going to do is show you what's different between 2009 today if you're an existing customer, and if you are a future customer, hopefully what you expect to see in EquipSoft today. So why don't we go ahead and go directly to the application at this point and slide right into EquipSoft. As you can see, I'm logged in here. For those of you who have seen the software in the past, you will notice that I'm using a role or a home page particular to the accounting manager. For some of you who have seen the application or have seen our YouTube videos regarding the upgrade process, you will notice this is what we call the home page. I'm looking at the account manager screen here. As you notice, there are a lot of different components here. I'm not going to go over all the other components. We'll assume that some of you are aware of it. However, I'll make sure that, of course, I touch on the areas that are important as far as this webinar is concerned. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you something really neat that has not been available in the previous version of the software, and that is to use the search function here in the top right-hand corner. So as I mentioned, the first thing we look at are new reporting features. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and type in age, and regardless of how many characters I type in there, and regardless of what part of the actual report name I want to get at, I can easily just type in the partial part report name or ID. In this case, what I'm running is the age accounts receivable report. Oftentimes, the age account receivable report becomes one of those reports that you know it works in the software, but of course, certain people look at it differently. One of the features I wanted to show you here, which is universal throughout the application, but focusing on specific financial reports, is the idea that not only can you preview this report, which is self-explanatory, of course you can print it to hard copy, but now you can also directly print it to PDF, so you don't necessarily have to have a PDF writer installed on your workstation and then save it and have to look for that file. But what I want to focus on here is the Microsoft Send to Excel function. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and click that, and what that will do is it will launch Excel, and it will drop that information to Excel. For some of you, you're probably wondering, well, I'm sure it did that in the past, and in fact, some of the reports, some is the operative word in the software, were capable of doing this. One of the things that I really like about it is the idea that some users out there are more adamant about a much cleaner view of that, which is right here. As you can see, it's very tabular. The software has pretty much managed to put it in a format that is easy for you to manipulate. So in the past, a lot of customers are wondering, when I'm running a report, I see the report is very tabular. Is there any way that I can export that to Excel? In the past, you would have to go file save as an HTML file, and we all know what happens when you try to open up an HTML file in Excel. So it makes it so much easier for you. First of all, one of the things that I also noticed is in the past, customers have asked me, can you convert this particular report to an HTML file? And we can also do that in programming, so you can easily import it in Excel. One of the things that I always do as a former BA is that whenever I design a report, I always design it so that with a thought in mind that I know in the past in 2009, customers would want to export that as an HTML file. So now if you programmed it properly at this point as well in a tabular format, as you can see, it's so much easier for you to get that into Excel. Other things that I want to talk about as far as reporting goes are the special features that some of you have probably seen in the reporting strategy as well as the upgrade path. But I want to go over that with you today for some of you who hasn't seen it. Other things that are also true in the software is the idea that you can now drill down into reports as well as graphs or dashboards in the software. For example, if I scroll down here, one of the things that you'll notice is that my particular homepage for the accounting manager role has a lot of different charts or dashboards or KPIs, key performance indicator screens, which I've been able to create on my own, or I've leveraged what was created originally within the software. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the trailing sales order section right here. You'll notice very quickly, I can place my mouse pointer on top of, for example, February 2014 and see that I've got X number of release orders versus no, open orders. The great thing about this is I can essentially drill down on that and it'll take me directly to the open orders. My apologies, by the way, I forgot I was filtering some of my data here, so when it popped up, it filtered it based on some other criteria. But normally, based on your user ID, that should show you 7 records and so on, depending on how many records are actually associated with you. The next thing I want to show you is the idea that not only can you drill down on the actual dashboard itself, which is our graphs or chart, you also have the ability to be able to go to a specific report. In this case, we've developed within EquipSoft the My Report section here. Just a quick reminder that My Report section is built so that you as an accounting manager versus the AR coordinator versus the AP coordinator can have a list of all your favorite reports, which you maintain on your own. So in this case, this report right here called Sales Dashboard, I'm going to open it up. And what it will do is it'll take me directly to a request form, which you're accustomed to today. And once again, all the reports in the software, you can print PDF, Word, or Excel. But in this case, I'm going to go into preview mode. Once I'm on preview mode, you will notice that I've got a report that shows me both a graphical representation of the data as well as a chart or tabular form. Similar to the trailing sales order chart on my homepage, I can literally click on one of the charts and it will take me directly to a link page. In this case, it's the customer record. If I was to escape out of there to close that out and I was to drill down here to the section where I'm showing my top sales for all my equipment, I can click that and it will take me directly to a sub-report. So from a reporting standpoint in accounting, although I've shown this in an operational discussion, that's where our accounting hat for a moment here, and take a look at that and say oftentimes what an accounting department will say is, I want to see what's going on in the GL, but I also want to see the related entries, for example, in the subledger. So if you can imagine, once we produce a report for you within the GL, depending on the link and how we program it, it will take you directly to a sub-report, in this case a sub-report giving you more detailed transactions. So I'm just going to close that out, close out the sales report, sales dashboard report, and move on to other areas. The other area of reporting that you're probably already seeing are charts and graphs, which we alluded to in the trailing sales order section earlier. In this case, you notice I've got a cash flow chart here, which we'll talk about when we get into cash flow later. I've got a finance performance chart here, which we'll talk about later in regards to account schedule. However, there are things that you can do on your own, so you can generate your own charts as opposed to relying on charts that have been produced for you by the company. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the customer section of the database here, and you will notice that I've got an area here showing me all the different customers in the database. What I'm going to do here at this point is what you will notice that on the ribbon, it shows as a list form. Watch what happens when I click on Show as Charts. When I click on Show as Charts, you will notice that I now have the ability to take that information and see that in chart form. Of course, I can always go here in the filter and say, you know what, I really don't want to see all the other customers, but I do want to see customers 2,000 to customer 4,000. So as you can see, you're now able to see the list of all your customers, but perhaps you wanted to see only specific groups of customers. In the chart form, you can visually see, for example, the total sales versus profit. So now what I'm trying to show you here is that you're not actually generating a financial report outside of the customer record, having to find a report for it just so that you can show a list of these customers' sales and profitability. These charts, as you can see, something that you can create on your own. How did I do that? All I did was gone here under the measure and checked on the profit and sales. These are fields that exist today in the customer table. They're called flow fields. And of course, the next thing I did down here is specified that I wanted the customer number. I won't bother drilling down on that. You can just see that the customer number is on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go back to the role center. I'm going to show you another chart that I created. I won't bother showing you how I did it, but here's a good example. Oftentimes, the accounting department, the AR department, wants to know, for example, the open sales order entries or total for each salesperson in the company. In this case, all I did was I took the sales header tables, focusing on the sales entries for parts or equipment sales per se, and I did a chart for that to show me by salesperson go David Pills, Dave Vision, myself, etc. So as you can see, there's a lot of power in charting. And once again, for some of you, you've probably already seen this, but I want to put it in context from an accounting standpoint, because oftentimes when I do a demonstration of EquipSoft, my focus is always on the operational side, and we forget that the same thing does apply to the financial side. Other things that you can also do from a reporting standpoint, and these are just the type of things that you can do, is that you can actually take a set of information and send it to Excel. And you're probably going, well, I already used 2009 today, and I know I can do that, but what I want to show you is the difference between 2009 and 2013. So what I'm going to do quickly here is I'm just going to go into my sales image here. It's another database that I'm using to show this part of the demonstration. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to the item list here. And once I go into the item list, you will notice that I've got a list of all the different part numbers or equipment model codes in the database. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to keep it simple, and I'm going to just click on a filtered set criteria here. And I'm just going to show you, jumping ahead to what I'm going to show you later, which is filtering, is that all I did was I took the item list that has my parts and my equipment inventory, and I filtered that to show me only item type equals equipment as opposed to part or other / allied. And then what I did here is I went ahead and filtered that to show me only those equipment that or model codes that do have a quantity on hand. And all I did there was I clicked on Save View As, thus allowing me, similar to what you're accustomed to today in 2009, to save a shortcut within your home page. Once again, for clarity, all these different changes that you make on your screen when you create your own graphs, when you create your own shortcuts or save filter views, that's resident on your own user profile. So from this standpoint, you can see that I've got an equipment with quantity on hand, and I get my own description. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on Send to Excel. So once I click Send to Excel, what will happen is the software will automatically take that information and put it into Excel. So you're probably wondering, well, we can do that today. What's the difference? One of the things that is important today is the idea that once you install the software, we will also install at the same time a link back or an add-on to Dynamics Nav or EquipSoft with a refresh button. What do I mean by that? So what I'm going to do quickly is I'm just going to go ahead and save this on my local machine, and I'm just going to say save that to my computer, and I'm just going to say save that as that file, and I'm going to close that file out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the database. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend that this is not a skid steer loader, but it's an excavator. I'm just going to do that for kicks. I'm going to go to the edit mode, and I'm going to go in here and modify that. And I'm just going to put it in brackets because I obviously want to go back to that record because it's not an actual excavator. Just going to pretend an excavator. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. What's important to note about the Send to Excel function, and you're probably already guessing if you've seen this part of the demonstration in the past, but I'm going to do it again. For those of you who haven't seen it, I'm sure you're probably saying to yourself, he's going to click the refresh button, and in fact I will, and watch what happens to the data on the screen. Automatically the data on the screen changes. This is a very, very important feature because as a former implementer of the software, BA, and an architect of the software, these are the things that I know a lot of our customers are asking for from the finance side. Although this is an item list, which I often use for this part of the demonstration, now imagine how flexible that reporting will be for you to be able to extract it into Excel. The great thing about this as well is that the fact that I filtered that particular screen to show me only equipment type and only quantity on hand not equals 0, this spreadsheet that I exported or sent to Excel is also dynamic enough that, of course, if certain models become 0 quantity on hand, obviously it's dynamic enough that it will refresh the screen so that the data will change. Other things that I also want to point out to you very quickly, and I'm just going to talk about it at this point. I'm not going to bother showing you exactly how it's done, and I'm actually going to create a new spreadsheet here. I'm going to click New. One of the things that I recommend that you view the reporting strategy webcast in our YouTube channel called EquipSoft is the OData feed. This takes a little bit while to demonstrate, and I don't want to go through all that function with you right now, and not to replicate that particular part of the demonstration. But in a nutshell, all this does is allows you to be able to, similar to ODBC, be able to extract data using web services from EquipSoft and present that to Excel. It's the same idea as Send to Excel, except you can also extract list forms or pages. Pages, by the way, is a new term for forms or windows. And also you can create queries. Once again, I really strongly recommend you view the reporting strategy in our YouTube channel, EquipSoft. so that you can understand what those queries and OData do for you. The next thing that I'm going to do is talk a little bit about the account schedule and go back into the database, which was just the original screen I was at earlier. Oftentimes, the account schedule is probably the first type of reporting that you would create so that you can generate your financial statement in EquipSoft as opposed to generating that using some other function such as Excel or some other dashboard KPI type of report. The account schedule does have some enhancements, which I'm not going to go over with you right now. However, I want to focus with you how we take the account schedule and make that even better with additional functionality. That in particular is the finance performance chart here on the right-hand side of my screen. As you notice, it's a bar graph similar to all the other charts you see. If I place my mouse pointer on it, it will tell me that this is my total sales for the current period, 478,000, 2013, October. If I click on a different bar, you can see that it's a total sales overall. If I click on the blue bar, we're talking about rental sale. If I click on that, it's equipment sale. If I clicked on that, it's part sales. So as you can see, I was able to generate a chart. How did I generate that chart, by the way? Because now it's producing actual financial information. All that happened there is I went into the select chart in here, and it went into an account schedule chart list. From the account schedule chart list, without actually drilling further down into the account schedule section, you will notice that I've created a default account schedule chart. Of course, you can create as many different charts as you like. But in this case, I'm leveraging an existing account schedule report called IS1 and using the column layout. And in this case, what happens at this point is that it will grab that information that I've generated in the account schedule. So I'm not actually creating a different report. I'm just leveraging the existing report. Now, if I go to the edit mode in here, you will notice this is how I came up with that. All I did was I gave it a measure name. I told the software what column I want to use, so whether it's a column chart, a line chart, step line, etc. I told the software which line item in my account schedule I want to pull. So these are just line items on my account schedule. You can pull whatever line item you want. You can pull a total line item. You can put a posting account or totaling account. It's really your choice. And once I pull that in, I'm able to show using the finance performance graph or chart within my homepage an account schedule in graphical form point of view, as opposed to trying to create a separate report for that particular account schedule, extracting it to Excel, and of course creating a graph through Excel. So that's a little bit of intro on reporting. The rest of the way, I'm going to focus on non-reporting aspect, but of course there are going to be things that do touch on reporting. Other things that I want to point out to you, and I mentioned on the agenda, are fact boxes and statistics. Let's just quickly go back to EquipSoft in 2009 and take a look at what it looks like before. In the past, this is what you call the customer card. If I hit F5, as you're aware, it'll produce the customer list. Of course, for some of you already using the software today, if you want to drill down to the subledger and through other related transactions, you click these buttons, and of course, it will take you to the buttons here, and you can go to the posted invoices, open rental contracts, open work orders, etc. However, in 2013, we've changed that. If I go to the customer list here, right away you can see that, in this case, we saw this before, so we're going to go into show list. You can see that you see a list of our customers. The great thing about that is that as I select each customer here on the list, you will notice that the fact boxes here on the right side also changes. So in 2009, those fact boxes never existed on customer list or customer records. You saw them if you were into a sales order or a rental contract or a service order, but they didn't exist in master records. Why is having those information in master record important? Because from here, I don't actually have to open up the customer record to get into, for example, things like show me my outstanding orders, my open service orders, etc. I can easily drill down to that from here by drilling down on this number. Consequently, if I want to drill down onto the balance owing, I can go ahead and drill down into that right away. It'll take me to the customer ledger. Of course, as you can imagine, if I look at the ribbon at the top here, you can also access those different ribbon options, so it will take you directly to the customer ledger with a shortcut, of course, so that you don't actually have to drill down into the customer record. So that's a big important change because that is available to you on the vendor record, the item card now. It's available to you on the equipment card, so it's much easier for you to be able to get to the information that you want as opposed to just in the documents. Other things that I also want to show you, since I'm already here in the customer list, is the idea of sorting. Oftentimes, when I used to demo 2009, I would always get a question from a prospect asking me, the other software I've seen can sort on just about any column, and before I couldn't do that. Well, let me demonstrate to you that that is now also available in 2013. So at this point, you will notice that the names right now are sorted alphabetically. I can go ahead and sort that by number, by address, by city. I think you get the idea. So now the sorting is also done for you automatically. I never mentioned that in an operational discussion because it's something that I know the finance department probably utilize the most, especially when they're sorting based on posting date, and based on user ID, based on salesperson code, and so on. So that's fact boxes and sorting for you. That sorting, by the way, is available to you throughout the application on all tabular type of form/pages. The next topic I want to talk about is the idea of information sharing, workflows, and notification. This part of the demonstration, for some of you who have seen the previous demonstration, as I mentioned, would have seen this, but I want to put it in context with regards to finance. One of the things that we always get asked with regards to finance is that, Oliver, can you get the system to inform me when something happens? Can you tell me this? Can you tell me that? Can you tell me if some customer is over the credit limit? Can you send me an email saying the customer needs approval for a specific service order or a sales order, etc.? Some of those, of course, we're already doing in 2009, but the problem with all those send me this email, send me that email, is that they were very difficult to do in 2009, would require a lot of development just to come up with those combinations. In 2013, we've made that easier through the process of what we call event notifications, my notifications, as well as queues. So what we'll do is take a look at the first one, which are event notifications. So very quickly, I'm just going to go back to my PowerPoint slide presentation here, and I'm going to show you what that event notification looks like. This is an example of an event notification. I just did a screenshot here because I didn't necessarily want to have my email running in the background. But in this case, the idea here is that if you wanted an email to automatically be sent out to your customer when you generate any type of invoice, it will go out to them. So it's a form of event notification. It's event because it's triggered by an event, the event being the print or the send email function. What does that mean and why is that important to you? It's important because it means now that, of course, even though we will have a lot of out-of-the-box automatic triggers, there are things that, of course, that you want specifically as a customer from a finance perspective. So I want you to understand that these event triggers can easily be done for you, and this is just one example. However, I don't always recommend programming from a BA or implementation standpoint because, of course, programming isn't that important as far as based on what your needs are and perhaps because it's so expensive to put it together. Even though we do have that capability in 2013 today, I want to really emphasize to you today this feature called queues. Once again, people always say, can I get an email for this? Can I get an email for that? Well, these queues are what we call activities that allow you to be able to see and be queued by the software to tell you how many overdue sales orders you have, how many bank reconciliations you have to do, how many documents you have to approve, let's say if you're the credit manager and so on. So why is that significant? These queues mimic what your smartphone is doing today. So if you look at your smartphone, it says you have X number of Facebook notifications, you have X number of email notifications. You go to those applications on your smartphone so that you can see what those new messages are. However, I'm not sure if any of you, I'll use this as an example, are using Facebook today. In Facebook, you will have a counter here that says you have 17 new notifications. But in Facebook as well, they will also send you an email. Guess what? Do you actually look at your emails and actually say, oh, here are the 17 Facebook feeds? Or do you actually just go directly to Facebook and look at that? So when you're thinking about these notifications, just think from an accounting standpoint that we can design or you can do it yourself, provided you take some training on how to create these queues. Just imagine what that would do for you with regards to all those notifications. You don't necessarily want to get an email for this, but rather you click it when you need to. So if you look at the bottom section right here, if I'm the accounting manager, I'm supposed to post the deposits or cash receipts or bank reconciliations because someone else has prepared it, I can see that I've got X number to post. Those are queues and automated emails that we talked about. Other things I want to talk about very quickly is called My Notifications. From an operational standpoint, I've shown this many times But from a finance perspective, this is the angle that we're going to do. In this case, what we have here is that we have a notification that was sent to me. I sent it to myself because obviously I'm the only person on my database telling me that I need to approve the credit for this particular customer. So what that means is that someone in the company has, with access to the database, of course, with access to this order number 78, added a note on it telling me that I need to approve the credit. So if I double-click that, it will take me directly to that document. So why is that important? It's important because now I'm able to interact with it. Think of this, for example, as exception reporting. Although I can probably see this in my queue to approve, out of the 20, which one are urgent? So in this case, I sent them to myself that I'm saying, hey, Oliver, this is urgent out of the 20 that you probably see in your own queue. You will also notice that that note right here is linked back to this particular order, so it archives it. So I'm not going to go into that too much further, but I want to accentuate to you the information sharing and how you can utilize this in finance for you to be aware so that you can expedite the approval process for work orders and rental contracts for your customers. See which customers have an overdue balance right away without having to create a report for it. Other things that I also want to show you are related now to dimensions and posting routines. I'm just going to go back to my PowerPoint here and show you visually what dimensions mean and the posting routines mean in the software today. In the past, up to version 2009, we've added the flexibility, or Microsoft added the flexibility to use dimensions. However, the problem with that is that it oftentimes made your database too big. It causes a lot of entries, and of course, when you're trying to report, it slows down the system a little bit, not too much. So what Microsoft has done, and this is the before view, is that instead of creating an order and posting the branch, the department, and the product type, et cetera, all the different dimensions, and then creating all these subtables and attaching the same number of records, as you can see, you're just multiplying literally the number of dimensions. What Microsoft has done is we use what we call unique codes, so dimension set ID. So if you have an order that has a dimension set ID number 1, it knew automatically in one table that that dimension 1 code has branch, department, and product code. Of course, there could be dimension 2 that's related to another type of order, but in this case, this is what happens. Instead of creating multiple records in all these different tables associated to these different tables, it just says that that shipment record that you created, I'm going to link that to one record called dimension 1, and then the software is smart enough inherently to be able to drill down to that one record that shows me the branch is Cleveland, department is sales, etc. So from a dimension standpoint, a reporting standpoint, it certainly makes it a lot easier for you to be able to extract that data. Furthermore, from a posting routine standpoint, it makes the posting routine on many of the larger posting routines that you're running that much faster. In fact, the system has now improved the posting routines so that more people can simultaneously post without being bottlenecked or stopped because someone else is locking the SQL database. The next thing I want to show you is cash flow forecasting, and this is one of the big changes in the database today. What's cash flow forecasting? I'm going to show you what it looks like on the screen. I'm just going to show this to you on the next, my PowerPoint first so that you can see what it's doing. Essentially, cash flow forecasting, you can read through this and I'll describe to you, why is this important. It's important because in the past when we had demonstrated or when we implement version 2009, customers are always asking us, well, Oliver, can you create a cash flow statement in the software? And consequently enough, the answer is yes, provided, of course, that you're using the account schedule for it, and within the account schedule, you make sure you have the proper GL account. However, that doesn't always work because when you're looking at the account schedule, you can't pull your deposits that you're expecting to receive as of a particular date. The payments due or cash disbursements due that you need to actually generate from a payment standpoint to vendors, you can't pick that up because that's not coming out of the GL. So what Microsoft has done is integrated that directly, a new feature called cash flow forecasting or cash flow statements within EquipSoft. So basically, this is in a nutshell what it's trying to do. It combines the power of the subledger for purchasing and sales. Oh, by the way, that's the other thing that I forgot. Of course, it's also looking at open orders or pending orders that you have yet to close, anticipating that you will be closing it soon. So let's take a look at what that looks like in the database, and I'm just going to go back in here. But what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to quickly switch to my other company because that actually has a lot more data than this demo company I'm using. So all I did there is very quickly switch to my Cronus database. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to Cashflow, and you can see I already have a cash flow forecast in here. So what I'm going to do very quickly is I'm just going to double-click that. You'll notice I've got some data here that hasn't been refreshed, so I'm going to go cash flow worksheet in here. I'm not going to go through the detail of how this was created, but basically it's pulling all that information as of right now to tell me what my cash flow is. I'm just going to register that. By registering it, all I'm doing is I'm taking that information and saying, okay, now I want to produce that in my view here, and I'm going to press F5 in here. You will notice that the data actually updates. Of course, you can have different views to this particular screen, but bottom line is it will show you based on all those information that you grab and based on the configuration that you set in the software, it will pull that information directly into your cash flow statement screen. Of course, a lot of that stuff you can create and set up on your own, so let me just quickly show you the chart account for the cash flow. You create this yourself. We'll train you on how to do it, and that's how it knows it's going to pull the data based on, again, GL information as well as subledger information. The next thing I want to show you is cost accounting very quickly. Cost accounting is a nice new feature in the software. I'm just going to show you the cost accounting workflow here. Essentially what it does, it looks at cost types, cost centers, cost objects. Think of those as you being able to group costs based on special grouping that you necessarily wouldn't be doing in the account schedule / chart of account, because of course in the chart of account you want to see those account numbers independent of each other because you want to see them in detail. But imagine being able to group that. Cost centers being your departments or branches or whatever dimensions you want to use. Here's the workflow that we're going to take a look at so that you can actually see what cost accounting does in the software. So the workflow being that you set up your cost accounting screens or formulas, and it allows you to create your report based on the combinations of things, cost centers, budget information, etc., so that when you're reporting on cost account, you can compare budgets and actuals based on departments, branch codes, product codes, manufacturer codes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show that to you on the screen and what that looks like. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to cost accounting here. And here's an example of the different cost types. As you can see, the different cost types allow me to be able to specify what GL account, for example, I want to go into this cost account screen. Once again, I can compare that to the budgets. Because you will notice that it's also looking at GL account numbers, and for some of you who are already using the software today, you will notice it kind of looks like your account schedule. So once again, although account schedule, there hasn't been a lot of changes, we've leveraged what you've created as part of your account schedule and allowed you to mimic that, not only in the finance performance indicator screen, but also in cash flows, but also in cost accounting. Just so very quickly, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go into cost centers here, and I'm going to show you some of the underlying setups. In this case, I've created a bunch of cost centers here, and again, these are things that you can set up on your own. And then from here, I'm going to click on dimension values to show you what dimension is actually picking up. So why is that important? Because it's important for you to understand that you can actually identify the different dimensions or branches of dimensions, such as branches and departments within the cost account structure. So again, that's just a quick introduction to cost accounting. It allows you, once again, to gain better visibility and insight to how your business is performing today. In the past, I know certain customers of mine have taken information out of the software, built this cost accounting structure in an Excel spreadsheet. Of course, you can now do that inside the software. Other things that I said I was going to show you are the idea of bank statements and imports and exports based on the agenda. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you exactly what that means. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to journals here. I'm going to go into my general journals, and I'm just going to go into my default journal here. I set that up in my EquipSoft company. I'm going to go back to journals here, and I'm going to go to general journal, and I'm going to go my default journal. However, this default journal, you will notice I'm pointing directly to a bank statement import format called import. So what does that mean? If I go into that batch, you will notice it allows me to go directly to the general journal. But now the difference is there actually is a function here called import bank statement. This import bank statement function allows you to be able to import bank statements into your general journal. So what that means is that if you ever have a situation where you have lock boxes or money is being transferred directly to your bank account, you don't have the information previously and you don't necessarily want to enter it manually because you're about to do a bank reconciliation, those bank statement entries can easily be imported into EquipSoft today. What's important to note there is that you can now also apply that manually. As you can imagine, once you enter a cash receipt into the cash receipt journal screen, you would apply that to the invoice you're paying, or you can also apply it automatically. So what does automatic application mean? That's what we're going to take a look at when we go back to my PowerPoint slide presentation. So the topic is bank imports and exports. This is what we can do for you today in 2013. We can now import bank statements. We can import payroll entries. We can export payment export. Payment export, of course, are those ACH or ETF, EFT, electronic fund transfer. Speaking of bank statements and payroll imports, what's important to note here, as long as it's SEPA or SCPA or CAMT compliant format, we can easily work with those files out of the box. So from an import standpoint, export is pretty standard because it's export. You're not really validating anything coming in. From an import perspective, since we're talking about bank statements, these are some of the sample criteria that the software is using. So of course, as you can imagine, you can't just import this information and expect the software, if you're doing an automatic application, to know exactly what it's going to apply to. So in this case, this is just a sample of what the software is doing to say, if I'm bringing that information in from a bank statement, this is how I'm validating that information. So what's important to note is behind the scenes, each one of these bank formats, import or export, you can create on your own and specify the format. You basically take the paperwork that comes from your bank that tells you this is the format that you need to use. You enter that into the database, and of course, it will pull that in for you or export it for you. Again, provided it's SEPA or CAMT compliant. Otherwise, of course, we'll have to work with those different formats. Just think of them as similar to your price tape today. I know some of you are not running it, and we're running it for you, but the idea is very similar. We map it to the fields. We specify what the fields are, or what the formats are, so that we can import that directly into the database. The final thing that I'm going to show you today is data migration. Data migration is an important tool, not just because it's something that you use when you're importing records into the database. For existing customers, you're saying to yourself, well, what value does that offer me that you now have made it easier to import information to the database? It only applies, for instance, for new customers. In fact, that's not necessarily true. We have a lot of customers today that have to import a large number of brand new equipment or serial numbers via data ports. Imagine if the actual file itself changes, they can now create those import themselves easily by importing that directly into the database. In addition, if you ever purchase a new company and you want to bring them into EquipSoft, how are you going to do that? Of course, you're going to import the information so that you can grow and easily do that on your own without our help. Again, this is important for you in 2013. Let me show you an example of that. That technology, by the way, although we still sometimes call it data migration, it's not actually called Rapid Start or Rapid Start Services. In this case, here are the options for you. I'm not going to go through each one of them. I'm just going to go here under the configuration templates. The configuration template, for example, allows you to identify what configuration you want to use. Today, you're using this today, so it's piggybacking on that. In other words, when I create a brand new equipment or part, this is the default values associated with that. If I go back in here and I click on configuration packages, this is where you can specify the different packages that you might want to create in the database. Just going to switch to my other database here, by the way, that has those records. And we go back to that option and go in here so that you can see more data. Here's an example of a configuration package. If I go in here, watch what happens if I go into edit mode here. You will notice that it looks very similar to what you're doing today, but the mapping obviously has improved dramatically so that we can go ahead and import that directly into the system via Excel formatting. However, that's a bit technical. You're just going to have to take my word for it that it's a lot easier. But let me show you something that's really, really unique today, and this is the final feature I'm going to show you, the idea of being able to copy and paste directly from Excel. So what I'm going to do here is again, back to the appropriate company. Very quickly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into journal screen. I'm going to go to general journal, and I'm going to go to my default journal. And you can see I already have 2 entries in my general journal. We're not here to talk about General Journal, but what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and select those records, additional features in the software. In the past, you can only copy rows. It's so much more difficult to copy or paste multiple rows. Now we made it easier for you, copy rows. So watch what happens here. I'm just going to go to an Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to go to a new Excel spreadsheet here. I'm going to paste that information. I'm going to do this, just expand it. I'm going to copy that information. Or let's just go ahead and change it, say 456. 456. Account number 41100. Account number 43100. I just made this up, of course. And let's change the number to 200 minus 200. I'm going to copy that. And if you're guessing what I'm about to do, you're absolutely right. Control-Shift-V. That information is posted in the table. I wanted to show this to you from a General Journal standpoint. I could have easily shown this to you in other tables. But other tables, like I said, it's not going to be something that you do all the time, such as customer, item table, etc. In this case, General Journal. Oftentimes, from a finance perspective, you create these journal entries in an Excel spreadsheet because you do a lot of formulas, macros, and so on that's driven from some external calculation. Wouldn't it be great to be able to put that information into your journal entry screen? Because, as you know, it's easy for you to copy, paste, and add formulas, etc., and be able to copy and then paste that into a General Journal screen in EquipSoft. So although this is under the data migration part of the demonstration, it's really just a way for you to take information from Excel, paste that directly to EquipSoft. In fact, in the past, what I've done is taken a lot of the equipment records and part records that I'm putting into my database through the use of an Excel import. So that's it for the presentation. And what we're going to do is we're just going to open up the floor for some questions and answers.
Yeah, so Eric asked, can the notifications go to a group?
Yes, it can be programmed to go to a group, depending on, of course, how many groups you're trying to pull.
I've got a couple more for you, Oliver, if you've got time. One was, what version of Excel does the software work with?
Ideally, 2010 or higher. We say that because it's the best version available today. With 2010, one of the reasons we say that is because if you want to move towards the business intelligence technology we have, that technology that we offer for reporting, we use Power Pivot, and Power Pivot is what generates those reports or makes it easier for you to generate those reports. And, of course, they work with Excel.
Okay, perfect. And I've got one more for you, Oliver. Are the account schedules going to be affected because of the upgrade?
No, the account schedules will remain the same. That's what's great about the account schedule. Not much has changed there. The look and feel has improved a lot. But the key there is that the same data will be translated if you upgrade. I assume that question's from an upgrade perspective. And, of course, how you set it up, and you will learn to probably improve it, will greatly make it easier for you to do all the other types of reporting in EquipSoft today, such as cost accounting or cash flow. In addition, by the way, as an FYI, and I forgot to mention this earlier, your account schedule, we also utilize that and pull that information directly into the BI technology. So for you interested in that, take a look at the reporting strategy webinar, as I mentioned, in our YouTube channel called EquipSoft.
Okay. Well, that concludes our presentation today, everyone. So with that, on behalf of Oliver and the entire EquipSoft team, we again sincerely thank everyone for taking the time to join us today. If you have any other questions about EquipSoft or about this webinar, we'd be happy to assist in any way we can. So with that, thanks again, everyone. We hope you can join us again in our ongoing series of webcasts. Have a great rest of your day.